Hey, what is going on, guys? DK. Back at you with another video here to bring the 9-game NBA main slate on Friday. Before I get into the video, if you guys are new to the channel, welcome. My name is DK. I make daily videos and live stream for NBA and NFL slates on Draftkings. If you're unable to watch these YouTube videos, I also upload on Apple Podcasts. Link down below. It's called the DKDFS Show. And if you're interested in signing for premium content, now is a great time. Start of the month. I have a few different packages. NBA package, we cover the main and each late showdown slate. NFL package, we cover the main and the showdown slates, and then esports package that includes Call of Duty and CSGO. It's nice to have a morning sweat. CSGO slates are always in the morning, so if you guys want to try that out, again, that is something I do offer. And I would like to thank the sponsor, Prize Picks. I was checking out the NBA board. So they have some single stat stuff up, but no fantasy score yet. But yeah, if you guys this is your first time watching, not familiar with Prize Picks, it's a player prop site. So you can either take over under in fantasy points or over under like straight up points, rebounds, assists. You can also mix and match sports. I think you can go up to 5, pick up to 5 players and up to 10x your money, I believe is the max. So if you do guys want to try it out and sign up using my code DKDFS, that is DKDFS, all one word, you get a 100% match up to $100. So if you deposit using my code $100, you get a free $100 to play with on this site. And finally, I want to thank you guys again for your continued support on Twitter, on YouTube, the live streams. Really do appreciate all you guys. We're getting a lot of love on the videos and the live streams. So, the easiest way to support me, guys, is just to hit that like button, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. I do want to mention I will not be able to do live streams the next few days. I'm actually traveling to New York and to watch my girlfriend run the marathon. So, no live streams for the next few days. I'll still most likely have videos up on YouTube for the weekend, though. All right, so before we get into players and the prices for this 9-game slate, we can look back at my lineup here from Thursday's slate. So Thursday, well, it went really well for me, but I'm still extremely tilted. So let's go over my lineup. Did have a takedown. This is in a single entry tournament. Got first place $600. Tied for first with someone else. My lineup was Conley, Cunningham, Ingles, AD, Sengun, Jordan Clarkson, Bazley, and Westbrook. So let's just talk about the Utah first half. Did you guys see that? Did you see that? God, I was sweating that. First of all, I could not believe how low owned some of these Utah guys were. Like, and even in this tournament, even the higher stakes, 45% Conley, 13% Ingles, 36% Clarkson without Donovan Mitchell. I was like, oh my God, I love this ownership. Like, this is amazing. And then the first half happened, and Jordan Clarkson shot 1 of 50, and Mike Conley had like 12 fantasy points. And I'm looking at myself, I'm like, well, I just suck, I guess. I'm just the worst player ever. Because I was hammering home to load up on the Utah guys without Donovan Mitchell, and I was shocked at that ownership. Absolutely shocked. Luckily, they actually had a decent second half, and all three got there. Because, again, the usage without Donovan Mitchell is massive. So I was really, really surprised. That was, I still can't get over it, how low owned the Utah guys were. Cade Cunningham was the chalk, as he should have been at that price point. Now, one thing I was talking about in Patreon was I was hoping that, or I didn't think DeAndre Ayton was going to play. So I was leaving a spot open for Frank Kaminsky because he would have been a smash for me. Now, we had that Philadelphia Valley. I was really hoping Korkmaz would play so we didn't have to, so those guys didn't look as good. But once Korkmaz got ruled out, I was like, oh boy. I was like, Niang, Thibault, Milton, the guy that has most upside. You're probably going to want to go to one of those guys. I, though, however, was banking on Ayton not playing. Now, Ayton ended up playing. Tilted about that a little bit, but I had a backup plan. So I had Kaminsky and Jayshawn Tate, who I was pretty high on, and I pivoted to Sengun and Bazley. Bazley had like 17 first quarter fantasy points. He like doesn't play in the second half. Like, he's on fire. He had like 9 points, 4 boards, and a steal. I'm like, oh my God, I'm finally getting lucky on a guy where he has a ceiling game. He plays like 2 second quarter minutes for some reason. The Thunder, they randomly, sometimes they'll play 9-man rotation, sometimes they'll empty the bench and play everyone. This is a night that they empty the bench and they play Kenrich Williams. And then they close with Kenrich Williams over Darius Bazley. And to top it all off, Westbrook should have been close to 100% owned. Just a massive floor game without Russell Westbrook, without LeBron James. So I was very tilted about that too. Westbrook, I will play in that spot 100 times out of 100 without LeBron James. I'm not I am tilted about that, but that's just not one where I was even considering fading Westbrook. I wanted at least one of the both Lakers stars. I played both. But yeah, so those are the few things I was tilted about. Schengen also got in some foul trouble. He lost some minutes, but the Utah guys in the first half, I was just like, are you kidding me? Making me look like an idiot. And then Bazley barely playing second quarter and not closing. Thank you for that. Thunder just running 15-man rotation. And then Westbrook, the random massive floor game without LeBron James. But again, it was still a really good night for me. Had first place, took it down. I ended up playing cash games too. This is my second time playing cash games this year. And man, there is a massive edge in the low stakes. Like all I did was grind out the $1 to $5 double ups and 50-50s. There's a massive edge. Those Utah guys are like 20 to 30% owned without Donovan Mitchell. All of them. Conley, Clarkson, and Ingles were all like 20 to 30% cash games. Made no sense. And you had those Lakers guys who were like clear cash game plays, like 60% owned in low stakes. Like Westbrook and AD were like 60%. I'm looking at like, these guys should be 100% in cash. What are we doing here? So, I think I'm going to continue to play low stakes cash games. I think there's a pretty big edge there. But going over ownership in the Thunderdome, I was taking a look at some lineups. To no one's surprise, both Westbrook and AD chalk. That Boston game, Boston-Miami, was a massive blowout. Don't feel bad if you play KJ Martin. He was 25% owned in these super high stakes. The only thing I was concerned about there was Eric Gordon coming back, so I thought, he might lose some minutes. He did get his minutes severely cut from the previous game. Let's see. Thibault got 50%. That made sense. Again, Milton was the guy I was the most scared about fading. 75% owned. He was a great play. It was just there's so many good guard plays. Right? The Utah guys, you had Westbrook, you had Milton. You had to make some tough calls. And you had Cade Cunningham, obviously. Let's see. What other ownership did I want to go over here? Embiid, once again, another bad game. Like, man, if you played Embiid tonight, I feel you. He is just, I don't know what's with him. I don't know if it's the knee or what, but like with everyone out in Philadelphia and he's still busted, like he went for 35 fantasy points. The Utah guys a little more popular in the super high stakes, right? Ownership condenses in the good plays. Clarkson, 50%. Conley, 62%. Ingles, 37%. So that's it for the look back, guys. Hope you guys had a good night. Again, it was a really good night for me. Had a takedown. Hoping to keep it going for this 9-game slate. Let's see. Do we have any odds out for the slate tomorrow? Looks like we have a few. So Nets and Pistons at 212 over under. The Nets are 10-point favorites. Spurs and Magic at 212 over under. The Spurs are 3.5-point favorites. Cavs and Raptors. We don't have an over under right now, but Raptors 6-point favorites. Hornets and Kings 226 over under. The Kings are 1.5-point favorites. And Pacers, Blazers 222.5 over under. Blazers 3.5-point favorites. We'll start off on the Brooklyn side with Brooklyn and Detroit. Kevin Durant, James Harden, 10.6 and 10.3K respectively. Honestly, both secondary options. There's some blowout risk here against Detroit, so you got to factor that in. And then the fact that neither really stand out their respective price points. As far as the secondary plays here for Brooklyn, I just don't know if I want to deal with this headache of Steve Nash and his rotations. Bruce Brown probably starts and plays, I would say, close to 30 minutes, fair value. Patty Mills you can look to as a contrarian value play off the bench. Does have some upside, but there's really not much here. Make sure if you're playing Bruce Brown to not play Bryce Brown. Again, they have a Bryce Brown and a Bruce Brown. I guarantee you there's going to be some people that play Bryce Brown on slates. I want to look back at ownership in the low stakes and see when Bruce Brown is a really good play, see how much ownership Bryce Brown gets. I think that's really it for Brooklyn. And moving on to Detroit, so obviously the guy that stands out here is Cade Cunningham. He played, they don't have his recent stats up. Oh, they do. 32 minutes. 39 fancy points. He still had a bad shooting night and got there. Good rebounding guard. Did have a few assists too. We went 18, 10, and 4. I think he's a really solid value once again. I'm expecting around 30 minutes if the game stays competitive. Grant and Bay, no thanks for me. The bigs I'm going to pass on. I do have a little bit of interest in Killian Hayes. The minutes been trending up on him. He played 29 tonight. I prefer Cade Cunningham, but Killian Hayes also viable as well. Moving on to Memphis. So good matchup here for the Grizzlies going up against Washington. John Morant, 9.4K. I think it's once again going to go overlooked. In a competitive game, I think he plays 35-plus minutes. He's been really doing a good job with stuff in the stat sheet. So like John Morant, again, he's going to be super low owned. I will already tell you that. Steven Adams at 4.7K. If I knew for sure he was going to play 30 minutes, I would really like him for value. Not convinced about it. Washington, I mean, they're not like it's a big team. Like Montrez is an undersized center, so like they can definitely close with Jaren Jackson Jr. or like bring in like Clark or Tillman off the bench. So that's my only concern with Steven Adams. If I knew for sure he's going to play 30 minutes, I would like him a good amount there at that price. As far as the other plays, Desmond Bane feels priced about right. Solid option, but doesn't really stand out. Melton, same thing. So they're both secondary options for me. All right, let's move on to Washington. So Brad Beal at the top at 9.5K. Doesn't really stand out this price point, but viable for GPPs. Dinwiddie feels too pricey for me. Same with Kyle Kuzma. Again, the centers with Gafford and Harrell. Harrell's too pricey for me now, unless you think Gafford gets in massive foul trouble, which he does basically every single game. But I do think Gafford probably plays 20 to 25 minutes if he can stay out of foul trouble. A 4.4K if you want to roll the dice him in tournaments. I don't think it's the worst idea. And KCP is in play. You know, he's going to get more ownership on a slate that lacks value. There's already some pretty good value plays in the slate. But like he's going to play around 30 minutes in a competitive game. He's super reliant on the scoring, so there is still a floor. But he's only 3.6K. All right, moving on to the Spurs. So once again, they're going to be without Jakob Poeltl. Murray at 9.1K has been playing really well, but you're paying a premium for him. I don't think I want to go there. Derrick White seems priced about right. Where I'm interested in is the bigs with Eubanks and Thad Young. Now, they didn't fully split the 48 minutes last game, right? They actually closed with a small ball lineup against Dallas. I don't think they can do that against Orlando. Orlando wants to play Mo Bamba and Wendell Carter Jr. together, two bigs. So I don't think the Spurs can go small here. So what I think happens is I think Eubanks and Thad Young get the full 48 minutes. So Eubanks only 4.2K. Not the most skilled basketball player, but he's actually a solid point per minute guy. I think he's a pretty decent value play. And then I still have some interest in Thad Young, 5.3K. I think that price point scares some people off. Listen, last year for the Bulls, Thad Young was like, wasn't he like 7K? Like he got up there. Like he's really good at stuff in the stat sheet. So if we're going to get like 25 minutes from Thad Young, I actually think he's still viable at this price point. Again, I think people will get scared off of 5.3K. I'm not going to touch the rest of the Spurs. Moving on to the Magic. So again, Cole Anthony finally came back down to earth after a really hot start. The upside is there, but at almost 8K, more of a tournament option. Bamba, boom or bust because of the foul trouble issues. Wendell Carter Jr. probably looks like the safest option here. 36 and 35 minutes last couple games. That's really, really good to see. He's a good rebounder, again, 14, 13 rebounds. So I think Wendell Carter Jr. feels like the safe option. Suggs is fine. Like he's going to play around 30 minutes probably. He's not been great, though, to start the year. Moving on to the Knicks and the Bucks. So Julius Randle, 9.6K. Feels priced about right. Doesn't really stand out to me. The rest of the Knicks, again, Kemba does have upside, but also has a low floor. They can close with Derrick Rose. I'm probably not going to go there in a 9-gamer. I'm not paying almost 7K for RJ Barrett. You guys know my feelings at Evan Fournier. Mitchell Robinson is a little bit intriguing at 4.5. He's played 27, 28, 28 minutes the last 3 games. He does have some upside, but he's taken a little bit of a step back, like usage-wise. Like he's not been that good of a point per minute guy, but I think he's at least worth a look at that price point. Moving on to Milwaukee. So there's still a lot of guys out, but it looks like Drew Holiday is going to be back, which does make things a little bit more complicated. So keep an eye on Drew Holiday if there's going to be a limit. If there's no minutes limit for Drew Holiday without Chris Middleton, I actually do kind of like him. And then we have Giannis at almost 12K. Sure, it's a tough matchup, but still fine paying that price point. I think in a competitive game, we get around 35 minutes from him. So both stars here from Milwaukee that are going to play with Giannis and Drew Holiday, I think look good, assuming there's no limit on Drew Holiday. As far as the rest of the bench guys, Allen and Connaughton don't really stand out with Drew Holiday there. Bobby Portis is a guy I'm intrigued by. He got in some foul trouble and the game blew out. I think he would have been on pace for like 25-plus minutes. Revenge game narrative, if you guys are into that. I do kind of like Bobby Portis at that price point. I think George Hill shifts to the bench role, so I'm not super interested in him at 4.1K. And then they've actually been starting Thanasis Antetokounmpo. If he starts again, he's viable, but he's also prone to foul trouble. And they can go a lot of different ways here. Again, they can give Bobby Portis a good amount of minutes too. So, let's move on to Cleveland and Toronto. So Cleveland, surprisingly have been decent so far as a team. Like, aren't they positive in the record? Like, they're like 5-3 or something, or what are they? Hold on, I'm actually curious because like this roster still just doesn't make sense to me. I know I say that like every video, but it just doesn't make sense. Yeah, they're 5-4. Like, how? They play 3 centers and 2 guards every game. Just doesn't make sense. But start Jarrett Allen, who played like 50 minutes last game. Like, what are we doing here? 35 and then 40 minutes for Jarrett Allen. So if we are, in fact, going to get close to 40 minutes, Jarrett Allen looks great at this price point. Now, will we get those minutes? I don't think it's guaranteed. Plus, he's still gotten those minutes before and has been a letdown. He's been very up and down. I do think the ownership's going to be inflated, especially after 56 and 55 fantasy points. So I'm a little bit torn on what I want to do here with Jarrett Allen. Mobley continues to play big minutes as well. He's also power forward eligible. 40 minutes last couple games. At that price point, fine. I think Allen's probably got a little more upside. And then the guards, Darius Garland at 6.5K feels a little bit too cheap. I think in a competitive game we get around 35 minutes. Unless he plays really bad, then they could close with Rubio. But yeah, 6.5 for Garland. I think he makes her a pretty safe option. You can go to Sexton. I hate playing this guy because he's so scoring dependent, but he does have an upside too. And then Rubio, he played 31 minutes last game as a contrarian play. I don't hate it. Again, still no Markin, still no Love, and still no Isaac Okoro. They actually started Dean Wade last game at 3.3K. If he starts again, sure, he's a viable punt play, but he's not that good of a point per minute guy. He's better when he plays the 4 or the 5. For some reason, again, they have him playing the 3. Like, just start Cedi Osman. Why are you starting 3 big? Why does Cleveland just want to start 3 centers every single game? It doesn't make sense to me. Cedi Osman at 3.9 came off the bench, only played 17 minutes, a little bit concerning. Now, he's a much better point per minute guy, so if he would start, I would like him a lot more. But if he comes off the bench, he's risky. Did Dylan Windler got in this rotation? I don't really want to play Dylan Windler. So, yeah, that's it for Cleveland. Again, they ran an 8-man rotation last game, so definitely an interesting team. Moving on to Toronto, still no Siakam. They're also just playing these guys massive minutes. Like Cleveland and Toronto, the two teams are just running these guys into the ground. 43 minutes for Fred VanVleet without overtime. That is just absolutely insane. So if we're going to continue to get around 40 minutes from Fred VanVleet, I think he's a relatively safe option, a guy that can stuff a stat sheet. OG Anunoby also just playing massive minutes. The only thing I will say, though, is Scotty Barnes is back, so probably a little bit of a usage hit to OG Anunoby. Scotty Barnes himself at 6.8K should also play big minutes, but he's prone to foul trouble. Like his upside, a little bit riskier. I don't think I want to mess with the centers, the Chua, Birch. The minutes are too inconsistent right now. If you want to roll the dice into Chua and hope he plays 25-plus minutes, sure. But he's also played 17 in previous couple games, so I don't really trust it. And then Svi Mikhailiuk probably shifts to the bench role, so 4.1K, I'm going to pass on him. Moving on to the Clippers and the Timberwolves. So Paul George, the top at 10.4K. I think makes her a pretty safe option. Good matchup here. Should play 35-plus minutes. He's doing it all right now for the team, so no issue paying that price point for Paul George. Reggie Jackson just randomly went off out of nowhere, shot 11 of 18. Now, his minutes are still there, 34, 34, 39, 36 minutes. The floor is relatively low, though, because he's not doing a ton of peripheral stats. Besides last game, we were at 8 assists and 5 boards. So Reggie is playable for tournaments. Nick Batum, 4.6K. I still like, and he randomly just didn't come back in that second quarter last game. That tilted me, but he still got there with a big second half. I think he plays around 30 minutes. A guy that can stuff a stat sheet. I think a safe option. They're also giving Man and Kennard big minutes off the bench because Eric Bledsoe is struggling, to no one's surprise. So Man at about 30 minutes, I think looks like a relatively safe option. Kennard a little more aligned to scoring, a little bit risky, but he's still viable. Again, Bledsoe is really, really cheap, but the minutes are trending down. Like, is there a way where Eric Bledsoe plays really well here and he goes back to playing 33 minutes like he was earlier in the year? I think it's possible. So if you want to roll the dice and hope we get a good Eric Bledsoe game, like he does have upside. Then I got to mention Ivica Zubac, who played 34 minutes last game against a big front court. So I think they're going to need him against Karl-Anthony Towns. I don't think they can go small, and they showed last game playing him 34 minutes. So I'm I like Zubac a good amount here. I do. 4K feels too cheap if he's going to get 30-plus minutes again. Now, there was some Hartenstein foul trouble, only played 13 minutes off the bench, so I think that's partly why Zubac played a little bit more. But I think they're going to have one of the centers out there at all times is my guess. Hartenstein at the flat min price I think is viable. He's a good point per minute guy. So, yeah, Clippers are a team I'm definitely interested in. And then moving on to Minnesota, good place here for sure without D'Angelo Russell. Start with Cat and Edwards at the top, 10, 7, and 8.5K respectively. Both get a usage bump without D'Angelo Russell. I think both are good spend-ups. But then the value. So I was all over Pat Beverly last slate. He was pretty low, on like 20%. I was really surprised about that because like Pat Beverly was playing really well in about 20 minutes off the bench, and we knew his minutes were going to go up when he started. He played 31 minutes. A guy that can stuff the stat sheet. Almost had a triple-double. So as long as there's no ejections or, you always got to just have that in the back of your mind with Patrick Beverly. If he doesn't get ejected and he plays 30 minutes, I think once again he's a really solid value. Malik Beasley got a lot more ownership than Pat Beverly. Again, I was prioritizing Beverly because he stuffs the stat sheet where Beasley is a little more scoring dependent. Now, the usage will go up with Beasley without D'Angelo Russell, so I think he's still a good value too. And then I'll mention Jared Vanderbilt, who's actually been getting a little bit more run recently. 29 and 27 minutes last couple games. He's a solid point per guy, good rebounder, 8 and 8 rebounds last couple games. So, yeah, there's some value I like here for Minnesota. Beasley, Beverly, Vanderbilt all look pretty good. All right, a few games left, Pelicans and the Warriors. So, Brandon Ingram, status up in the air. Same with Herbert Jones. We'll have to monitor that. I'll start with Jonas Valanciunas, 8.7K. So, randomly got his minutes cut last game. Maybe it was because of the back-to-back. That was the first time he played under 30 minutes all year. So, a little bit concerning there. Now, I like the spot for him a lot against Golden State. Like, they're not going to be able to defend him. Kevon Looney, Bjelica, like, he should be able to have his way. The only concern I have here is, like, do the Pelicans go small to close the game? Like, do they not close the JV? Because look at all these games. Philadelphia, big. Chicago, big. Minnesota, big team. Atlanta, big. Sacramento, with Holmes, they have a traditional center out there at all times. New York, big. Phoenix, big. Sacramento, again. So, like, they've played basically a team with a traditional center closing every single game so far. So, is there a chance that Jonas Valanciunas doesn't close this game? I think you got to have that in the back of your mind. So, let's say this. If I knew Jonas Valanciunas was going to play 35 minutes tonight, I would probably play him. But I am a little bit worried that they don't close with him if they fall behind. So that's my concern. Ingram at 8-1, if he does play, don't mind him as contrarian spend up, but he's also playing massive minutes. Like, he was playing like 40 minutes a game before he got injured, so Wood has some interest there in Ingram. Now, if Ingram and Herbert Jones are both out, it really pains me to say, but you got to consider Garrett Temple. I have no idea why he's on this team. Washed up veteran, but he, for some reason, played 34 minutes. Like, we should be getting the young guys, Trey Murphy and Najee Marshall minutes. Nah, let's play Garrett Temple 34 minutes. What are you doing, Willie Green? Garrett Temple would be viable if both those guys are out. The two guards in Graham and NAW are fine tournament options. Hard at 5-1 feels about right. So not much else there for the Pelicans. Moving on to Golden State. So Steph Curry is going to be super, super low on, especially after last game. Had a bad shooting game. Jordan Poole had the ceiling game. Don't hate him in tournaments. It's definitely a little bit overpriced, but like he can still go for 60 plus. So Steph Curry in play here for tournaments is going to be very, very low owned. Draymond Green was let down for me last slate, but he played 35 minutes. That's good to see. So if we're getting mid-30s minutes from Draymond, I'm fine paying 7.3K for him. Poole had the ceiling game finally. Played 32 minutes. Like, he should be playing around 30 minutes for some reason. Steve Kerr wants to play. Damian Lee a bunch of minutes. I don't know why. But yeah, Jordan Poole, viable for GPPs. Again, he's a guy that does have some upside. We saw it last game. And the bench here, or like the rest of the guys, I just don't trust really anyone. And I don't trust Steve Kerr. He runs like 11-man rotation every single game. Like, he just runs a weird rotation. Like, if Gary Payton plays, he'll bring Gary Payton off the bench first and like not bring Damian Lee until the second quarter. It's just such a weird rotation. Like, just run a normal rotation, dude. Yeah, Kevon Looney at 3.2K. If the Pelicans are sticking to playing Jonas Valanciunas big minutes, I would think Looney might have to play a little bit more. So Looney's at least a little bit interesting, right? They haven't really played a team where they had like a really like a dominant big, like a Jokic or an Embiid yet. Like, I think if Golden State plays a team like that, then Looney might play more. So Another one where, like, okay, if you're playing Jonas Valanciunas, then maybe you play Kevon Looney with him. Because I think Kevon Looney probably has to play a little bit more if Jonas Valanciunas is playing like 35 minutes. All right, let's move on to Charlotte and Sacramento. So we'll start. We got to start with the best player in the world. Give him the MVP. He's the best player. No, he's actually really good, Miles Bridges. Like, taking a massive leap forward this year. He's playing massive minutes. Him and LaMelo are the two highest usage guys in this offense. At 8.2K in a decent matchup, I'm fine paying the price for him. I really am. LaMelo Ball at 8.9. The good thing here is the minutes are going up. 33, 34, 34 minutes. A guy that can stuff a stat sheet. Again, up-tempo game here. So both LaMelo and Bridges, I think, are fine options. I don't think either are going to be super popular in this 9-gamer. Hayward's fine, but a little bit of a lower floor. We saw the floor with Rozier. Now, the ceiling is there with him, but, like, when this team is fully healthy, the floor is also pretty low. PJ Washington doubtful, so I think this is a game where Mason Plumlee might have to play around 30 minutes. Like, when PJ was out, we were getting around 30 minutes from Plumlee, and Plumlee's actually a decent point per minute guy, so contrarian play in the mid-range, I don't mind that for tournaments. All right, moving on to Sacramento. So De'Aaron Fox continues to not have an upside, I guess. He's playing big minutes. He finally actually had a decent shooting game, and he's still just not really getting there. So I just don't know if I can pay this price point for Fox. Like, you have Davion Mitchell taking on a little bit of a bigger role. Halliburton's playing well. So I think right now Fox is going to be a pass, which means he's finally gonna have a massive game tonight or tomorrow. Harrison Barnes, you guys know my feelings on him. He's the second best player to ever play behind Miles Bridges. Rashawn Holmes, 6.5K, got ejected last game, but in a competitive game, he probably plays around 30 minutes. I think he's a decent option, a high-energy big. Halliburton had a ceiling game last game, but most of the time he's going to hover around 30 fancy points, so he's just a secondary play for me. And then I'll mention Davion Mitchell, who's played well off the bench last couple games, 28 and 26 minutes, or 28 and 26 fancy points, 30 and 26 minutes. He's playing in mid-20s minutes. The floor is still there for him, but I think he's at least in play as a contrarian value option. And finally, Indiana and Portland. So they're tempting with Sabonis price. They are, 9.3K, but yeah, like, he's taking a little bit of a step back offensively when the team is fully healthy, which is a little bit worrisome. Now, I do like the matchup for him a good amount, so I'm torn in what to do here with Brogdon and LeVert both healthy, and Miles Turner randomly just turns into the best player in the world too every once in a while, like he did last game. So yeah, I'm a little bit torn on Sabonis. I do like the price. Again, Brogdon and LeVert both have upside, so they're viable tournament options for me. Again, Miles Turner just randomly, like, we have just the random blow-up games for Miles Turner. 15 of 22, 64 fancy points. 9 of 14, almost 60 fancy points. Like, what is going on here? Like, Miles Turner just randomly having these ceiling games. Like, last 3 games, he's, 41, 38, 57 fancy points. So if you want to ride this hot streak for Miles Turner, I'm not going to talk you off him. I don't necessarily trust it. But, hey, at least the upside is there for him. And finally, Portland. So Damian Lillard continues to struggle shooting, 10 of 27. Now, he has gone for like mid-40s fantasy points the last couple of games by shooting awful. 7 of 20, 10 of 27. So I'll keep saying this. What happens when Damian Lillard finally has a good shooting game? He has not had a good shooting game yet this season. He has not. So the Dame upside is like 70 fantasy points. If you want to try to go to him for a low-owned contrarian spend up for GBPs, I think it's fine. Try to buy on him before he has that big game. CJ McCollum probably the safer option. Also playing big minutes is cheaper, so he looks a little bit better point per dollar. As much as I love playing the Bosnian Beast, Yusuf Nurkic, just the minutes, right? 26, 28, 28 in competitive games. Just not going to get it done. Now, if Nurkic is playing 32 to 35 minutes, I would have a lot more interest in him at this price point. But right now, 26 to 28 minutes, hard for me to feel great about that. Norman Powell, I do think, is a fine option. Feels a little bit too cheap for guys going to play around 30 minutes. The one thing I'll say with him, though, is he's pretty reliant on the scoring. And I'll mention Simons, too. Like, they're actually running at 3-guard sets a decent amount here. 29, 24 minutes. That was with Dame and CJ both healthy, obviously. So I think he's at least worth a look as a contrarian value play in the slate. All right, guys, that's going to do it, though, for the video. So if you have been enjoying the content, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and hit the notification bell. Again, no live streams for the next few days, but I'll be still hoping to get YouTube videos out for the weekend as well. So that's going to do it, guys. Good luck, and I will see you in the next video.